Other interesting political news, you have General Motors and Stellantis beginning the layoffs due to the UAW strike. Now, this is coming after one of the historic moments. First time in about 80 years, all three branches of the big three, they're all striking at once. And when I say the big three, if you're not big in the automotive community, or maybe you're an international listener, not experienced with the international big three, it's Ford, General Motors, and Chrysler. Now, Chrysler, during the 2009 bankruptcy, they failed so bad the European company bought them out, pathetically enough. Formerly Fiat, now it's a large company very similar to Volkswagen that owns many brands. The new company that owns Chrysler is now called Stellantis. And Chrysler, in and of itself, Chrysler actually owns Jeep as well as Dodge. So, back in 2009, General Motors went bankrupt again, and Chrysler went bankrupt. So, and Ford barely squeaked by. They also, in terms of perfect, timing being half of everything in life, they just happened to get a huge loan at the perfect moment so that they could actually withstand the economic uncertainty and the turmoil that was the 2008 recession, which ironically was caused by the government making decisions to tell the banks to give homes to everyone. And ironic because UAW, well, they're very good at politics. They pay a lot. They do a lot of political donations, and those people were the people who, wanted the housing market to be the idea of everyone deserves a house. Let's give it to everyone, see what happens. Well, in terms of the Magic 8 Ball was pretty clear in that result. And we could all say, with hindsight 2020, that outlook was not good. Now, it looks like this all started, we had every couple of years you had the contract negotiations. And traditionally speaking, you'd get close to the deadline and both sides would come together, you meet somewhere in the middle. And at the end of the day, the cost would still be exponentially more than the competition that makes more reliable vehicles at a lower price point, such as Honda, Toyota, Tesla, Kia, etc. But this started off with the UAW asking for benefits equating $80 billion. Yeah, I'm not kidding. $80 billion was their first proposal. And that wasn't just for all the companies, that was for all three. So $80 billion over the course of, again, it's a 4-year contract. So having your cost of labor increasing, so it'd be $80 billion for GM to pay, $80 billion for Stellantis to pay, and $80 billion to Ford to pay. On top of their wages already being the highest in the industry. So they started off way out here, and automotive companies, the big three, they were realizing, oh yeah, if we do that, we'll go out of business. Because they're trying to cut costs left and right. In terms of background of what the big three have been doing, GM actually bought out 5,000 employees, or rather 5,000 salaried employees, from their contract in February of 2023, thereby eliminating the positions because Mary Barra wants to decrease the cost to, again, this is their vision, their idea, not mine. They want to compete directly with Tesla. Now, I don't think that's a proven business idea, but that is their vision, that's their ideal. And she wants to have all EV Cadillacs by 2030 and all of EV GM, all the brands, so you have GMC, Buick, Chevrolet, as well as Cadillac, all of them by 2035. That's going to take a lot of money and a lot of new talent, a lot of engineering skills will be needed. So they're trying to cut the cost, and at the same time, GM, everyone's trying to cut the cost. The big three, they're dealing with the United Auto Workers. They want to increase the cost to historic highs. Now, it looks like on the 6th day of the strike, GM and Stellantis announced layoffs. And this is after Ford actually just had to lay off about 600 employees as well. Now, Ford and all these are in direct correlation with the UAW partial strikes. They're actually doing partial strikes instead of the whole strikes so they don't have to pay out all their members at once, I suspect. Because if they do, with their current methodology they have now, the strike can last much longer. And it's just as effective by crippling the big three, which is what they want to do. By partially shutting down a plant, specifically the Ford Bronco plant, they actually basically kneecapped the whole thing. So they had a partial plant, but Ford was like, well, the finishing department's not working. I believe also the finishing department, paint department, and a couple other areas that the UAW pulled employees out of. Well, they can't finish making the Ford Bronco, so why have the plant to begin with? So they laid off 600 employees to that specific Ford Bronco plant strike. Now, the layoffs with GM and Stellantis are exactly the same correlation. Now, it looks like GM is laying off 2,000 employees from their Kansas plant because the UAW is having a partial strike at that particular location. Now, Stellantis is laying off 370 employees at 3 of the Stellantis parts factories. Now, these are the parts that they manufacture parts for the Jeep over in Toledo, and that's where the current UAW strike is on the Chrysler or Stellantis part of the strike initiative. Now, interestingly enough, Stellantis did also note that this is also due to storage constraints, interestingly enough, correlating with the strike. And right now, the strike is allegedly causing the companies to decrease their output, so each of the big three, by 3,200 vehicles per day, which is devastating for the 18 people who still want to buy their products. I mean, what on earth are they going to do? I'm only moderately kidding. If you look at the market share of the big three, they've been precipitously decreasing. Let's just say they could afford these benefits and they could afford having high prices back in the 1940s and 50s because of a lack of competition. But again, these days, the average price of the vehicle keeps going up and up and up. Tesla actually has a cheaper product, and it's an EV company. It took them, I would say, about a decade to get to profitability. It took quite some time for Tesla to do that, but they actually have a product where, astonishingly enough, it is actually cheaper than the average price of a new car in North America. Interesting fun fact. And again, the price of the labor at Tesla is much lower. It's also a different culture because they also give their employees stock, which I would always argue if you want to have a great relationship between the manufacturer, like management, and the people assembling the product, stock is a great way to make them more invested in the company and more motivated to actually increase production, increase quality. I think that's one of the best mutually beneficial incentives you can provide someone. Now, interestingly enough, and let me know if you're part of the UAW, I'd love to know your perspective, if that's something you would love or hate, but it seems like that's never been negotiated. And I haven't seen that as a negotiating tactic or something that they've been offered in the past. And I partially suspect they would rather not. A lot of things they're demanding for, like getting paid to work 40 hours, but only having to work 32 hours a week. And yeah, reinstating. So a lot of the things that they want are based on tenure and not exactly performance. It's kind of, on average, I would say a theme you see with many unions, not all, but many. So I don't suspect that they would actually take that, but I think that'd be an interesting idea personally. And let me know in the comments. It'd be fascinating to see. Are you affected by the strikes? Do you think it'll go longer or shorter? Given all the information we have, I would say it will last much longer than we think. I believe the record is about maybe 4 months in the past. And interestingly enough, again, it's the first time in like 80 years that all three strikes are happening at once. And I partially suspect Sean Fain, he knows, he wants to be a change advocate, some might say. He did polls, as many politicians do. Most of the people in unions want to strike. So there's not really much of an incentive to not negotiate, or to negotiate rather, because he's giving them what they want right now. And it'll be interesting to see how long it goes, but unfortunately I suspect it will go longer rather than shorter. Thank you again for taking the time to tune in. Again, I know it's ambitious, but we're trying to get to 4,000 subscribers by the end of September. So if you could click that subscribe button, I would greatly appreciate it. Also, all of the comments help the channel grow and develop, and the feedback is much appreciated, whether it's critiquing how I can improve my speaking abilities, or it's suggesting new software where we can do picture-in-picture in real-time production, so we could incorporate some of these clips into the production of the show as well. All the feedback is greatly appreciated, and of course, leaving a like also helps with the algorithm and gets more people to tune into the show, and it helps out as well. Also, lastly, don't forget to take the time to tell your family, tell your friends, tell your coworkers, heck, tell your enemies, tell anyone and everyone. Just stay safe and fight the good fight.